What's up, guys? In the last video I put out, I had a request to make a video on my top favorite day trading setups. I tried to include a good mix of beginner setups as well as the setups that have been the most profitable for me. But if you want to see me implement these setups live at the open, join us for our live stream every weekday morning starting at 8:45 a.m. market time. I review what's moving in pre-market and then day trade live on stream, and so make sure you hit that subscribe button if you want to check that out. Remember, guys, I'm not an investment professional, and so I'm not liable for any losses you take, and you always must make your own assessment of the market. Anyways, guys, good luck on Monday and enjoy this video. Okay, so the first long setup I want to go over is the pre-market high break. This setup has done me extremely well in the past, and it's a pretty easy setup to learn. The basic premise is you want to get in right when the stock breaks the pre-market high, usually within the first or second 1 minute candle. This is a good example of it here on FALC. You can see when it finally breaks that 35-cent pre-market high, it starts to push up really nicely, and this is actually a trade that I profited on. I do want to stress the fact that I only get in the pre-market high break setup within the first few minutes after the market open. If you wait too long, many times it will actually fail breaking over the pre-market high and you'll end up having a losing trade. My favorite time frames to use are the 1 minute and 2 minute time frame because this is a very quick acting setup that happens usually immediately after the open. The next long setup I want to go over is the washout long setup. The basic premise of this is when a stock gaps up a decent amount, many times a few traders will start to cover their positions right at the open. This will in turn cause the stock to drop a small amount right at the open before eventually rebounding and breaking the high of the day. My entry with this setup is to get in at the very high of that first red candle and try to get in looking for a decent move in the upward direction. With technical analysis, the more traders that are watching for a particular setup, the more momentum that setup is ultimately going to have. And with the washout long setup breaking over the first high of the day, many traders are going to be watching for it, and thus it's going to have a decent amount of momentum to push up in the direction you're looking for. Just like the last setup, I like to use the 1 minute and 2 minute time frames just because this is a very fast acting setup as well, and I usually like to look for the setup within the first 15 minutes of the market open. Another great long day trading setup is the 1 minute pullback strategy. This usually happens when a stock is only gapped up a very small amount and it pushes up a decent amount at the open. I like to enter this one after that first red candle, that first 1 minute pullback, and you can see a good example of that is here on ETRM. This one pushed up really nicely and broke over $2. You can see it had one red candle just for a little bit of consolidation. When this happens, many traders are looking for that pullback and decide to jump in when the stock breaks over the high of that red candle. Because many traders can be waiting for that first red candle's consolidation, you can take advantage by getting in and riding that big push in the upward direction. And last for the long side, but definitely not least, is the conventional bull flag day trading pattern. The reason they call these flags is because you can see the very obvious flag style pattern this stock forms. Your entry with this setup is going to be once it breaks the high of the previous flag and trying to ride up for a decent momentum push. Because I consider the flag pattern to be one of the most popular day trading setups, it can sometimes have a decent amount of momentum to push up in your direction. Still, it can eventually get exhausted, and so I usually try not to trade them if it's after the third flag on that particular day. With flag patterns, you can use either the 1 minute or 5 minute chart, but I usually swing more towards the 5 minute just because it's a lot more organized and easier to tell where the support and resistance lines are. The first short setup I want to go over is the opening range breakdown. Many people call this one the green to red move or also just the overextended gap short. With this type of trade, I try to let the stock form a range on its small breakout at the open, and I like to get in when it breaks back down under the low of the day. You can see here on CLSD, it formed a range with the first two candles in between 1245 and 1325. Once it eventually broke under that 1245 level, it had a pretty significant drop, allowing you to get in at the low of the day break and have a decent gain on the way down. If I do set a stop loss with this type of trade, I like to set it at the high of the day point, because if it breaks back over the high of the day, that's a reverse in the trend and my cue to get out of the trade. Like I said in a previous video, with this type of setup, I want to see a stock gap up over 10%, just because I want it to be really exhausted by the time the open happens the next morning, giving me that opportunity to short it on the way down. The last short setup I want to go over is just a simple low of the day break short. This is very similar to the overextended short in the previous clip, but with this one I want to give it a little bit more time to see if it's going to continue pushing up. If it does eventually break under the low of the day, that's my cue to jump in and try to ride it on a decent move on the way down. Just like the last one, many times I'm going to set my stop loss with this type of setup at the high of the day, although you can see sometimes flag patterns will be formed and you can set a tighter stop at the low of those flags to get a little bit less risk in the trade. Anyways guys, that's it for this video, so I hope you can use this stuff in the market and learn a little bit from these setups. If you want to see me implement these strategies live at the open every single weekday morning, join us for our live stream starting at 8:45 a.m. I go over what's moving in pre-market and then day trade my small accounts live at the open on stream. And so if you want to see that, make sure you hit the subscribe button, show your love by liking this video, and with all that being said, good luck in the market on Monday. Thanks for watching, guys.